Hello and welcome again to We've Got Issues. It is a friendly yet spirited conversation amongst my friends and I who have been friends for more than 40 years, who regularly ask ourselves on our text thread with our other friends, like, I wonder if other people see the world the way that we do. Well, here we are putting it out there for you guys to give us your feedback on just that, because we know you're thinking about the same kinds of things that we are. So we want to hear from you and see what you think. So before we get going, I want to just ask you to like and subscribe and to be able to join us on these little exchanges and be able to give your comments as they come up. So I'm here today. My name is Nick, and I'm here with my friend Ron Evans.
Hey.
There he is, and back in the VA, and of course Darren Gray, who's here in LA by way of
Detroit versus everybody.
Detroit, yes. So as I said, we all met back in college more than 40 years ago, and we're still going at it, exchanging ideas. And I have the honor of being the one to present his idea today, which is, if any of you guys remember the movie Wall Street back in the day, and Michael Douglas saying the famous greed is good, right? That actually said greed, for lack of other term, is good, right? And what my quote of the week today is, Grieve is good. Meaning, if you go back to the Wall Street mention that I just said, Michael Douglas said basically greed is the driving force, or his character in the movie said, greed is the driving force behind economics, behind what makes America work, behind what makes people spend money, what makes people invest in government or in business and things of that nature, because they want to make money. Mm-hmm. Well, in our current environment, the idea of grieve or grievance is also very profitable. It is the driving force, in my opinion, behind things like Fox News and many of the right-leaning. I know you guys are winding up ready to say that there's equal, things on the left. But in my opinion and in my experience, the project of weaponizing grievance and creating ecosystems around it that have said, rather than trying to solve problems and bring people together, if we can continue to cleave off different little areas of people and be able to sell them things that will keep them afraid and keep them reacting, we can sell them things, we can advertise to them, and we can create a monetary revenue stream that allows us to gain critical political power and economic power. And the cap to this whole thing that I think is important is that I wonder, with the success that's happened and the acceleration of it from social media, if we had the kind of environment, both economic and social, that we have today, would we have been able to pass civil rights legislation back in the 60s? If this existed back then, would we have been able to have a common language about what the truth is, about what is happening in the country, about, as opposed to having our own separate versions of the truth? We have to argue about a similar set of facts, not our opinions about the facts. We can all have our opinions, but now we have separate facts that no longer are completely mutually exclusive. So solving big problems, like even going to the moon, or like I said, civil rights or women's rights or gay rights or Watergate, like, would we have been able to look at things that actually happen in our country and say, whoa, like, that's something that we want to move against? I believe that in this culture that we are on, in this flight path that we're on, the big things that we want to achieve as a country will actually elude us until we realize that actually there was a benefit to, and I'm not saying it was perfect, but when we had traditional media, when we had I'm not saying Walter Cronkite and then we're the be all end all, but we had a common set of facts that we could deal with, in the common set of media outlets that we would go to, and then we could have our opinions about that from there. That the losing of that, we're losing something that's really causing us a real deficit that we will bemoan by the fact that we're allowing ourselves to be cut into smaller and smaller slivers for the purposes of extracting money from us, which is all that's happening, and the problems are not getting solved. So that's what I wanted to lay out for discussion today. Please have at it.
Well, Ron, would you like to, or would you like for me to go first?
Oh, please. Go for it.
Well, a couple things. One, I think there's recency bias. Every generation says that our problems would have kept prior generations from achieving what they have. So Thomas Paine wrote Common Sense in 1776, and the distribution of information then was essentially by horseback. And so the folks in the colonies would only get information by horseback. So I'm sure when the telegraph came about and information increased, people were like, oh my God, now people from over there can communicate with us over here. And then the same with radio and then television. So I think there's a recency bias when you look at communication over time and its influence. I think that you exist in a time period and all of the factors of that time period come together to create an outcome, whether it's civil rights or going to the moon or defeating the Germans or what have you. I think it's just a confluence, and like you can't talk about Oscar Robertson versus LeBron James. You can't really make those comparisons. So I think there's a recency bias. And the other thing I think of is I think that we sometimes forget that media companies and all the social media, they have one goal, and that's to separate you from your money. And they will do that by any means necessary. If that means, if they realize, according to the algorithm, that pissing you off makes you buy this, then they're going to try to piss you off more. So I think a lot of it just has to, I think you said it before, when you boil down, all of the problems, follow the money or something along that line. So I think it all goes back to that. And then, and lastly, in terms of this grievance and this pessimism, I was reminded when you showed us the clip earlier that you're going to put in the show notes. I was reminded of what you watch on TV tells you what life is supposed to be, but when you look outside, the only thing you see is the poverty-stricken reality, and that was Grandmaster Flash in the '80s. Mm-hmm. And so this grievance has been around since the beginning of time. And I just think that we're experiencing it in a different way than those in the past, but I don't think the net result is any different.
Passionate argument.
But was I loud wrong or loud right?
Loud wrong and right.
Well, more towards the former. I think Nick is right about, there's no longer any objective truth. And I think, when you look at the demise 1,000 years from now of Western civilization, you're going to find some fiber optic cable, which was the internet. And you're going to see on one end of the cable, MSNBC, and on the other end, Fox News. And that's how we were bifurcated as a culture. We went to our separate corners. We looked at the news sources that reinforced our worldview. We continued to friend people on Facebook that had shared our view. We unfriended people that didn't. And we have gone to our corners, and we are in an echo chamber now where we only listen to information that supports our worldview. Darren, you should know better than anybody, because you have examples where you try to rattle the text chain's view of democratic politics and the election, and were you embraced, Darren?
I was not.
You were not embraced.
I was not.
Right, because the echo chamber did not want to hear from you. Okay, and if we went back to the day where there was the three networks, there was Dan Rather, Walter Cronkite, and Peter Jennings, I think it was. I'm not saying that we should get rid of cable TV and all these streaming services, but we as a nation at least sat around the table or around the living room, and we got fed information that had to be right down the middle. because it was in the interest of the networks to be right down the middle and let you decide whether you thought it was right or wrong. And we don't have that anymore.
Just want to push back a little bit on the word objective truth, because we talked about that in the prior episode about the victor getting to tell their story. So when you look at objective truth, yeah, we did have the three networks. We did have that, but their story was very dominant culture supportive.
That's fair.
So it wasn't objective truth. It was accepted truth. We all agreed on a set of facts, but it wasn't objective. We just didn't have any other sources of information. So I wouldn't call it objective. I would say it was accepted or universal or social, but it wasn't objective, because when you look at the objective truth, you look at Tulsa, that happened, but it was suppressed. So it's not objective truth. We just had a common social value and a common story. And so I just want to push back a bit on objective truth.
That's fair. See, when I'm wrong, I can admit it. Anyway,
do not cut that out.
Moving on to throw darts at you.
I just want to make sure that pregnant pause was there for effect. No, and I think another example is we're talking really about gatekeepers that gatekeep information going out to the public. The classic example is John F. Kennedy and his affairs. Was not covered in 1960. Today, it would be in every newsstand, National Enquirer, and Star as you're buying your groceries. So things have changed. There's more mediums out there now than there was back then. And people they're looking for salacious items to put in the news. They want their voice. You look at various podcasts. You look at various, everything from Breitbart to Alex Jones, to InfoWars, and there are liberal ones as well, but I don't listen or go to any of them on either side. But everyone has their point, and again, it reinforces this echo chamber of, you're not crazy, my side is catering to you. And I think that's the problem, is we can't even get in the middle anymore. Being a moderate is almost a dirty word nowadays, because it implies that you're willing to compromise. God forbid that you want to compromise. And that's where we are right now. It's very sad.
Let me restate my point and go a little bit deeper, because I think that what I'm getting at is that there are matters of degrees here. And I completely unsubscribe to any idea that this is equal, that they're equally weighted on both sides. And I wouldn't even say, if you wanted to just hold up the two iconic, brands, MSNBC and Fox News, like, they're completely not business model wise set up the same way. Like, Fox News was a long-term project before it was launched as a reaction to what the creators of it saw as a liberal bias, right? The idea that we had the three networks and we had, all the things that it was actually even a reaction to Watergate. There were people on the conservative side of the aisle who felt like Richard Nixon was done hard by and should not have been, should not have suffered the fate that he did. And there was an ongoing project to try and basically counteract the narrative that, about how news is disseminated to people. Fox News became that eventually. And so what they did was they said, we can take the same information that is covered in a relatively benign way, or somewhat middle, moderate way, and we can take it and completely flip it and tell people who have some kind of grievance that this is about them against you, right? MSNBC, on the other hand, is basically, although they're not really covering conservative politics and they're not really being super critical of liberal politics, they are at least dealing with facts in general that I think you can stand behind, right? You can say that this thing happened or that thing happened, and it's not completely subverting the idea of reality. Now, I'm not going to stand up for MSNBC and they do everything right and Fox News does everything wrong. But what I am going to say is Fox News has no interest in telling you the facts that from a balanced way, and MSNBC is more inclined to do that, particularly when called out upon things that may be missing. So there's that. But what I really want to say,
co-sign that. I can't.
okay, we can disagree about that, because I think there's going to be people who feel feel different ways about it. I just happen to feel like, and I'm not saying MSNBC is does everything right and is angelic and completely didn't cover that Biden wasn't intellectually or mentally capable of being president, and at least in terms of being a communicator of what he was doing. Maybe he was able to do the job, but he wasn't able to communicate that he's doing the job. So whatever the case may be, I do agree with that. But what I have to say is, I'll refer to something that Neil deGrasse Tyson, I heard him say recently. He said, you could pick the time as a Christian, you could pick the time and day that Jesus Christ is coming back. And if Jesus Christ comes back on that day, you could probably convince an atheist, wow, okay, I was wrong. Maybe Jesus Christ is real. But if you pick a time and day that Jesus Christ is supposed to come back and he doesn't come back, you'll never convince a believer that Jesus Christ isn't real because he didn't come back on that day. And that's the difference between the right and the left. My experience is the left says, can we make it work, right? If you can prove to me that my side is wrong and your side is right, they're more inclined than the other side to say, hey, that could actually work. We could have a little for you and a little for me, and it could work out. I see the right as being the believer, the true believer, who you'll never convince of one thing. And I see the other side as being the one saying, hey, well, gee, maybe you kind of have a point there. Let's actually try and make this thing work.
So if I'm scoring at home, the side you agree with is rational, the objective news,
more rational.
The side you disagree with, they're irrational. You can never convince them, even when they're wrong.
Right.
That's how it breaks down.
I think more so, and I actually think that's a failing. I think it's been a failing of the left, is that the left is really typically is more agreeable to start from the middle of a moderate position and be pulled to the right, as opposed to starting from a far left position and being pulled to the middle. The other side is like, we're going to start all the way over here, and you see it time and again. You see it in the current administration. As soon as we get in, we're doing everything we want, no matter what you think about it, no matter who it hurts, no matter whatever, because we've got the ball and we're taking our shot, right? And their believers are like, yeah, that's how it should work. Lay those people off. If you want to cut the deficit, start with the least. The people who are going to affect that the least by cutting off jobs, as opposed to saying, let's go to the Defense Department, let's go to healthcare, let's go to all those things. Let's just lay off some people and say, see, found some inefficiency for you. Congratulations, aren't you happy? So, and they'll say, yeah, that's exactly how it should work. I think they're doing great.
So, my experience with the left has not been that. My experience with the left is that, what is the old expression? They don't think fat meat is greasy. Mm-hmm. So it's an old Southern expression.
I get it.
Ron isn't clear, even though he's from the
South.
But I think the ideologues on the left are just as religious as the ideologues on the right. And I say religious, I mean religious to their cause, whether it's climate change, whether it's LGBTQ issues, whether it's DEI. I think that they're not interested in compromising their beliefs, because their core religious beliefs, and I'm using religious not as pejorative, but more as, faith in things unseen, right? They are very dogmatic in their belief, as the right are in their beliefs. And I don't see there being much difference, except for people who are closely aligned. The moderates that are closely aligned with the left are more likely to give the left a little bit more grace and the moderates that are on the right are more likely to give the people on the right a little bit more grace. My perception of how either media or social media or conversations go is that people are seeking validation of their own perspective. And that's always been the case. But before, you didn't have an audience. And so before, there was an audience. And the right has always, or at least in the last 40 years, they've had, talk radio. So there was already a venue for that. I used to listen to all the talk radio, KABC, Rush Limbaugh, and all of them. So they had an outlet. It just wasn't in the television media, because the television media was more left of center. But they always had that. Rush Limbaugh was famous and popular before television. He had a huge following here in LA. Larry Elder. So there was always that aspect. So the right had a medium for communication, and it took off during the internet and now streaming. What I think is, in some ways I agree with you. The right tends to be more action oriented. Mm-hmm. They're like, we got our shot, we're taking it all. Whereas the left tends to say, well, we really want to play by the rules, but they don't
try to govern. They actually try to govern.
I don't know if they try to govern. I think they don't want to be the moderate on the left. Now the extreme on the left, they're like, do what Trump does, just go all in, and they get upset with Pelosi and Biden because they didn't go that far. But the extremes, I just think that more of the folks on the right are willing to go along with the extremes on their side than the moderates that are on the left, because the moderates on the right got voted out of office. There are no more McCains, there are no more Romneys, there are no more Cheneys. They all got voted out because of the base on the right. So
you're proving my point, Darren, and Ron. Before you get back in, I just want to say this: the election tells us that what I perceive to be right about people on the left is true, because Donald Trump, a known commodity, was able to peel off enough people who would probably be considered at least marginal, if not dependable, Democratic voters to say, well, maybe let's give it a shot because our side hasn't been as whatever as it could be, or maybe he makes a point, or maybe whatever it is. Like, there were enough of them in the middle to pull them over to Trump's side, and
that happened with Obama as well, with the folks on the right. There was enough hope and change in Obama's message to get some of those folks on the right to move over to left. So it really, it's that charismatic leader thing that people are susceptible to.
And I don't disagree with that. But to get to go ahead, Ron. Let me let you back in. Go ahead.
I mean, Nick, I'm like really struggling with your point, because you're saying on one hand, well, Trump's in office now, Republicans are in power, and they're just running rimshot across the government. Well, here's a fact that I just learned. Obama signed more executive orders in his first 4 years than Trump did in his first presidency. Mm-hmm. Okay. So we didn't have a problem when Obama was taking the pen and doing things that we liked. But now that same pen is being used and targeted against things that we don't agree with, now we have a problem with executive orders. Okay. And I think that's the problem, where, once again, if you're doing what I like, you're rational, you're on the right team, you're the right news outlet. But if you're doing what I disagree with, you're them. Right. You're Fox News, you're Trump. It's all these things that disparage the people whose opinions I disagree with. And that's what I hear.
There's one caveat to that I'll make. When Obama was elected, the Republican Party said, our number one goal is to make him a one-term president. We're not going to do anything that he wants to do. So try as he may have in the beginning, like, listen, let's get together. Let's pass some laws. Let's do whatever. They said, we're not going to. Thank you very much. So he was only left with that option. Donald Trump came in and said, you know what? I'm not interested in passing laws. I'm doing what I want to do, which is what Republicans often do when they have the ability to do so. They're going to do what they want to do. Now, that's a little bit of a broad statement, but we know about this administration.
Well, let me ask you this. When Trump was first elected, did the Democratic Party make it their mission to make him a one-term president?
Don't know. They didn't say it out loud, but he certainly didn't come.
They said it out loud. They said it a lot of times. They wanted to.
You may be right about that.
Yeah, that was very clear.
What I'm saying is Donald Trump was not one to come in and say, well, great, then let's go ahead and start passing some laws. Let's work together to make it happen. What he did was on his own, which is why he was impeached twice, is that he's like, I'm not interested in your decorum. I'm not interested in your norms. I'm not interested in how things work. I'm interested in getting what I want.
Yeah.
And that's where it led it.
Yeah.
So my point, and I think the three of us, and tell me if I'm wrong, would probably line up left of center. Like if you're either conservative or you're on the liberal side, like which you got to be one or the other. I'm not saying that you're far one way or the other, but
I think I'm more right of center than left of center. I think I'm a little bit more right of center.
Okay, so
I would say I'm a
I'd
say I'm a conservative Democrat or a liberal Republican.
Okay, so again, both you guys saying you're more a little bit more right of center. A little bit right of center.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit left of center. Okay, so I think that there are enough people in that margins there because I'm certainly not far left and I'm certainly not conservative. So I think a valid argument could be made to any three of us about how to handle a problem, whether it came from a Republican or a Democrat, and said, wow, that ticks enough of the boxes that I feel like that proposal or whatever would work. I don't care who it comes from. I don't care whether it's while Trump's in office. I don't care whether it's when the Democrats in office. If that could work, I'm for it, right? Like you don't necessarily want Trump to fail, right? Because you don't want the country to fail, right? Right?
Exactly. Yes.
I'm the same. If he had a change of heart and said, you know what, I'm going to come before the people and show them how, what I'm saying is going to help make everybody's life better. And we can pass some legislation toward that end, I'd be happy for that. I'm not, even with all that he's done in the past, if it was truly an agenda that was for the net good of the country, I think that's great. It's great. I kind of, interestingly enough, I got off my own topic because my topic wasn't so much about Trump or about conservatives and liberals as it is about the monetization of grievance, and how, in my view, the right has been much more effective and efficient for the sole purpose of making money, like monetizing that grievance, and to the point where once they've got you in their ecosystem, you see all the products and services and Bitcoins and all that kind of stuff that they essentially sell you, right? Like you become a monetization vehicle for these people, whether they're podcasters, whether they're news outlets, ostensibly, whether they are social influencers or whatever. They're all basically trying to find a way to Darren's point, extract money from you without solving your problem. And what's happening is the problems are growing more and more because people lose sight of the idea that the goal is to solve problems, not to sit in our grievance and look at the wind, as Darren was saying in our previous podcast. Like you start to focus on the wind as opposed to focusing on the issues at hand. And so while you're focusing on the wind, they keep extracting money from you, which makes you even more aggrieved. And then they break down the government more, which makes you even less trusting in the government because the government is always being attacked. And all of it is for the purpose of extracting money from you.
And I think that the folks on the left use that as the ammunition to extract money from their supporters. If I can point to Fox News, Breitbart, and say, look at them, give me money, or if I can get your algorithm to put you on to podcasters or influencers that support you, that support your way, I want to extract money. I don't think the streaming services and the big tech companies care one way or the other. Their goal is to extract as much money as possible. And, like one of the things that happened more recently in terms of left and right is, AOC getting mad at Chuck Schumer for not using the filibuster that she said was a Jim Crow thing that should be gotten rid of, when it was, Roe v. Wade. She said we should get rid of the filibuster and pass a national abortion law. But now she's like, the filibuster is good. So I think the left is just as guilty as the right in terms of.
That's a different argument, though. Like,
no, but I'm saying
rhetoric is different thing.
No,
I'm
but
talking
rhetoric,
about literally selling you stuff, like using these things, because all of them did. Alex Jones did, like, was my Bannon, like all the people in the ecosystem, particularly on the right. Once you're there, you are their piggy bank. Right, and even Trump did it. Trump did it when he was president.
He still does it.
When he's on trial and he's raising money for his defense and all that kind of stuff. All these different levers that he would push to get people to give him money, because he's saying, they're coming after me to get to you, so give me money to pay for my legal expenses. Like, every time they get you to buy in, they really get you to buy in. Right.
And I think the left does the same thing. They'll say Trump is raising X number of dollars because of this.
Darren, I'm sorry to interrupt. Can we segregate like political fundraising, like the idea of fund for campaigns? Because I agree with you. Like, everybody's greedy when it comes to that. I'm talking about specifically the for-profit enterprises and the private enterprises, and to some degree, the political enterprises who specifically, and also the billionaire corporations who specifically see the profit incentive in capitalizing on your grievance only.
But Google, the Alphabet does it with Google as well. Right. Like my daughter, whenever she gets upset about something, she buys cookies and things like that. So, the TikTok and Alphabet and Meta, they don't care about her politics. They know that if we send her certain feeds, she's going to buy certain things. So whereas the Trump folks, you may have individuals, Alex Jones and Steve Bannon, doing it on a grander scale. These transnational, multinational corporations have perfected the art of getting you from your money. So I don't think it's a right-left thing. I think it's
specifically
them utilizing.
Though, Darren, like every company's out to get you to buy. Nike wants you to buy. It's not a political thing. Everybody wants to make you feel like there's something out there that's going to make you feel better if you buy it. Like, yes, I get that. That's commerce. That's capitalism. I'm specifically honing in to the idea that a very significant slice has been extracted from people without giving them something of value. They basically said, you're mad. I'm going to give you more reasons to be mad, or whatever the case may be. And by the way, while you're here, I've got some supplements. And by the way, while you're here, I've got this course. And by the way, while you're here, whatever. And I'm saying that
Trump Bible
have to wake up to the fact that, and I'm using your point, Darren, where people are distracted from what's really core. And they're being drawn into these silos. And it happens on the left too. But I'm saying specifically, we are being played by saying, pay attention to this. And while you're here, why don't you give me a couple bucks? Why don't you buy this thing? Yeah, and that's what it's all really about. It's not about solving your problem.
Okay, look, it's about power, and Democrats have their tools to use to keep people voting for them. They're the party that only cares about people, and we will make sure we increase social funding because you need help, you need subsistence, and we're going to be the party that helps those other people. They're just going to give money to the rich. So everyone has their bag of tricks. In terms of giving trinkets in exchange for money, Nick, I think you're missing a broader point, and the broader point is the people that the Republicans have targeted with these trinkets are exchanging a trinket for money, but what they're really saying is, I'm listening to you. You're aggrieved. Help me, give me some money so I can fight for you. And that's the part that you're not hearing, is there's a segment that's in Appalachia or wherever that's saying, you know what? No one is speaking to me until that guy from New York, he's speaking my language. And I'm going to give him money because he's the only person that's supporting me. We may think it's crazy, but there's a large swath of this country, which has been proven by the last election, that are like, he's actually saying how I feel.
Right. I get that, Ryan. I'm not talking about politicians. I'm not talking about politicians saying that, vote for me. I believe in, I believe in your cause.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the for-profit and the, the media
Selling.
organizations and the influencers and all that who are not here for the purposes of making your life better. They're here for the purpose of saying, oh, I see you're mad. Let me fuel that. And while you're here, let me, extract some more money from you. Sometimes it is politicians, Trump being the best example, where, every time it's a sneaker or it's a
Right.
Bitcoin or it's a whatever, all these things from the people who can least afford it. You're saying my eggs are too high, yet every time you come before me, I'm willing to pay, either give you money or buy your whatever. And it's not actually making your life better. And the cynicism just gets deeper because they're not interested in you.
Okay, so who is the audience that you're upset with? Is it corporations that are monetizing eyeballs, or is it the politicians?
I think to Frank Bruno's book about the age of grievance, I think that there's culpability for all those people. What I am offering, what I'm suggesting is there needs to be an awakening for everybody, whether you're on the left or on the right, right? And it goes back to what either you or Darren were saying in one of our previous episodes, which is that you've got to stay on your mission. You got to stay on your task. All these things that are being used to manipulate you, they're being able to manipulate you and get you to say that, you know what, nothing's going to be perfect. What somebody should be saying is like, you're never going to get all the things you want. If you can get a lot of the things you want and give up some of the things that you like to have, you're winning, right? Because that's how a pluralistic society works. Everybody should get something, but nobody's going to get everything, right? So that should be the American experience. But instead, we've allowed ourselves to be co-opted to tell us, like, if you're not getting everything you want, if the government's not working exactly the way you should have it, and you get everything and you take it away from those other people, then the government is broken. Your life is broken. Your public officials are broken. Right. And so they take that and they amplify it. And the social media companies are more than happy to allow that to take place without any kind of, they have no responsibility for whether it's true or not true or
Right.
harmful or not harmful. So I'm saying,
and I don't disagree with that.
American people to say you're being played more and more every day on every platform and by every influencer and by whatever, because at the end of the day, this is all about getting your money.
Yes, separating you from your money. And I don't disagree. And the influencer, I think her name is Susan Wu or something, who did the Choose Your Fighter for the Democrats.
Mm-hmm.
That crazy one where they're all jumping up saying, choose your fighter against Trump or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, her job is to separate people from their money by buying the products that she hawks. Right. But now she has gotten a broader audience into the aggrieved Democrats because of all these politicians that are on her TikTok channel. Mm-hmm. And so they're doing that's what I'm saying. There's no difference between how they're doing it. You have these political officials who are on this influencers, woos on her social media accounts doing choose your fighter, and they're showing how they're going to fight Trump. But the goal wasn't to pass legislation, come up with any way of dealing with it. It was to drive people to her social media platform so that she can sell you stuff. I think she's got like 5 million viewers on TikTok, 500,000 on Instagram. But the whole thing is she hawks products. Mm-hmm. And so the fight for you thing that, Jasmine, I think Crowley, whoever her name, her whole thing, by doing that did nothing to put food on table, lower prices, fight the administration. All it did was drive traffic to this influencer's website who's trying to separate people from their money. Mm-hmm. And so she may not be as famous as Breitbart. She may not be as famous as, all of the other, people that are hawking their wares. What I'm saying is the Democrats and liberals are doing the exact same things in different ways to separate people from their money. None of the stuff that Jessica Wu is selling, I think it's Jessica, I don't know what. None of the things she's selling has anything to do with the political whatever. She's selling products, and if she can get more traffic to her page because this person supports Jasmine Crockett, and Jasmine Crockett must think that this facial cream is good for it's the same thing. It's just a different way of doing it.
I get you. Again, I bring you my point to a matter of degree. I think that there are obviously people on the left and the right. I could not argue with you that there are people that do it on both sides. The matter of efficiency, forward thinking, and structure that happens to people on the right, because I think from a philosophical standpoint, the way people on the right, in my experience, and people on the left look at these things is different. I think people on the right feel like this should belong to me often. Like it's an idea that, which is why you see when they get into office, they just start to just do, because it's like, it's my right. Like I have a right to this, to be the way that I want it to be. Right. And I think that oftentimes people on the left are more moderate, like I think you and I would be, and not everyone, but it's like, if we can make it work, doesn't matter who gets the credit, doesn't matter where it comes from. We just like to see it work. Right. And
Can I ask a question, Nick? Because you keep labeling people that don't share your political belief as right, and in many cases you say far right. Mm-hmm. Can you just tell me what you view as a far left agenda or a radical left agenda?
I think radical left, if there were people, if there were a critical mass, which I argue there isn't, who felt like gender affirmation surgery should be, offered to anybody on demand, and that's a core value, it should be a core American value, I would say that would be a far left ideology, right? Like,
so the governor of Maine is far left, in your opinion?
If she said exactly what I just said, or he or she said what I just said, which is that gender affirming sex change surgery should be available on demand, no questions asked, and that's
so you
an
think
American
Kamala Harris is far left because she said
no,
that
she's
about...
not. No, she's not.
No, I'm just saying she said that about immigrants in custody should be able to have gender affirming surgery on demand. She said that. Now she changed it later because it wasn't polling well, but she said it. So would that be considered a far left position?
And here's the reason I asked the question is because it's very easy to label conservatives and the right wing as being far right on issues we don't agree with. But if you look at some far left issues, and I was wondering what you were going to say, you risk being canceled for saying that something far left is a far left opinion, that it should not be viewed as a mainstream opinion.
I disagree. I think you could be easily canceled on the right. The right has one cancellation point. I don't stand with Donald Trump. You're done. They only have one. That's it. You can say, I believe that immigration should be like more available, but with strict, laws against it or whatever. You won't be canceled. They got one issue. I'm with Donald Trump. I'm not with Donald Trump. You're done. That's it. We got nothing else to say. The left has all these little micro things that could cause you some grief, but you're not going to be thrown out. You're not going to be thrown out of anything because you don't agree in gender affirming surgery or because you think that the border should be closed. You're not going to be canceled.
No. So we can go back to the text chat on this one, because I know that there are certain jokes that was it Dave Chappelle made a joke, and I said I quoted a Dave Chappelle joke, and there was silence, and it's like, yo, I'm in California, we can't make that joke anymore. It's like, man, it was said 20 years ago in Los Angeles. You can't do that.
Yeah. I don't know.
Cancelable.
I think this idea of cancellation on the left is way overblown. There's so many opinions on the left side that you could have that are, of degrees of, less or more liberal or not, and you can still be in the party. There's only one on the right. It's
Nick,
like
we can't even call people homeless anymore.
Yes, you can. You're not going to be canceled. There'll be some people who will push back, but you're not canceled. You're not off the reservation if you say, yeah, they're homeless, and as opposed to saying unhoused. Or you say, yeah, I don't use those pronouns. I have not availed myself to how the pronouns work. I can just go by what I see. I said, ma'am, oh, you're transitioning. Sorry about that. What's your name? Paul. Okay, Paul, then let me just call you by your name, right? I'm not trying to fight every fight. And I don't think you have to as a liberal, particularly not now. I think they really woke up to the idea, okay, let's relax a little bit on all the micro.
Yeah, but would they have relaxed without the pressure from the right? Because before, that's what I'm saying. They have relaxed because they saw it was not a winning formula. They didn't relax because of some epiphany. They relaxed because their candidate got trounced and they lost both houses.
Didn't get trounced, but she lost. She didn't get trounced, but she
when
lost.
You look at the map of the counties, I mean, it looks like, when I saw that, I was like, wow. But what I'm saying, we won't even talk about the gerrymandering that caused that. But what I'm saying is that without the current administration and the results of the last election, I think if VP Harris had won, I think that progressive cancel that would have kept going and even further.
You might be right about that.
So they realized that it didn't poll well, and so there's a reason why Kamala Harris didn't fight back against Trump's ad about pronouns. There's a reason she didn't do that, because she said it's not a winning strategy. Right. Her core beliefs may have been that was wrong, but she looked at the numbers and said that's not polling well. So I think the Democrats may be more pragmatic than the folks on the right, but I don't think it's a question of them having higher morals or higher standards. I think they just, go with the direction the wind goes with, like our current governor in California, who now is all of a sudden against immigration, all of a sudden against transgender, and all of a sudden against working at home. Mm-hmm. 2 years ago, he was all in on those things, but he saw where the polling was.
Here's my point to that, Darren. I think you're right. I think I said this about Ron's thing about living in California in a previous episode. You know what? Sometimes you have to look at where the zeitgeist is, or you take your medicine from where it's dished out. And I think there are things that Democrats needed to wake up to, which is that if you really want things to work, you're not going to be able to fight everybody's battles. You have to find the winning battle for the most number of people, and everybody's going to win if you get the big things right? So if you want to make this fringe issue about gender affirming surgery like you're the hill you die on, you're going to die on that hill. But if you want to take a centrist position and say, listen, we need to make things better for the vast majority of people, that's a winning strategy. Come back to the middle. I agree with you. So my point, we've gone way over. I just want to reaffirm that I agree with what you center-right, friends of mine say, which is that there's got to be some sanity. The only thing I disagree with is that it's a far more prevalent and pernicious, I think, experiment on the right about how to purposely silo America into these silos and keep people separated, as opposed to actually solving the problem. Because in the separation is where the money is. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't happen on the left, but not to the degree that it happens on the right.
I think the people on the right are just better at it.
What? I don't think it's a moral. Better than I could.
I don't think it's a moral thing. I think
I never said morality. I just said that they see where the money is and they're going for it.
Yeah,
they don't care about your well-being. They care about your money. I didn't say the Democrats are more moral or they're more religious, any of that stuff. Because
you implied it by saying
they'd be coming at the whole system. They'd be looking at the system the way Trump and them are looking at the system. They say performatively that we're looking at the system and we want the system to work, but there's so many conflicts of interest for everybody involved in this administration that you can't take that seriously for a moment. If Democrats really were serious about it, they would be looking at the system equally seriously, and they would be coming up with solutions that you could not kick against.
That's because they were profiting from the existing system.
I agree with you, Darren. I'm not. That's a separate issue, because yes, everybody's hands are dirty. But I'm talking about now the not-for-profit, or I mean the for-profit entities, the corporations, the influencers, or whatever, who say they're listening to you, but what they really are doing is that they're extracting from you. That's all.
I mean, I feel uncomfortable having to defend the conservative Republican position.
Then
that's how liberal you are, Nick, with your position. That being a moderate sounds like I am a conservative.
Get your red hat.
You take offense, and you give examples of how Trump and his buddies are monetizing their political positions. But to quote Darren in a different way, weren't you quiet when Nancy Pelosi was on Senate committees and taking that information and profiting by it by making margin calls on various stocks? Okay, that she was overseeing what was going on with those companies. It's happening everywhere. It's just that when it's our team, we're like, oh, well.
You're making a different argument, Ron. You're making a different argument. I'm not saying that this isn't about Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer or any of the Democratic, people who have benefited from the way the system is. That's a political argument. And the politicians,
it's a financial argument.
They all have dirty hands. What I'm talking about is the economy of separating people into silos. Politically, we already know politics is about this or that, right? It's really making a choice about this or that. But I'm talking about the ecosystem that has grown up around it, that now it's for profit to actually further entrench that.
I know we're running long, but let me put it to you this way. There is an economy around left issues that are government funded. So like you look at homelessness here in Los Angeles. These NGOs are getting these massive contracts, billions of dollars unaccounted for, from the government entities. So whereas the right is enriching their for-profit friends, the left, because they had the levers of government with the bullet train to nowhere, billions of dollars in homelessness where the homeless number keep going up, they are enriching their cronies with the same thing. Oh no, these homeless people, everybody's against these homeless people. We need more money. We need more of your tax dollars. So I think how they go about it is different. The left tends to use government funding to enrich and to separate you from your money through forcible removal of your money, like taxation. Whereas the right does it by a whole different means. The end result is I have less money. I have now a 10.5% sales tax for homelessness, and the money is just going out the drain. They can't even account for where the money is gone because the left they use their levers of power to forcibly extract money from me and give it to their nonprofit cronies around their issues. So I don't see that as a difference, because the end result is the ideologues are able to make money in the situation, even if it's not politics.
Okay. All right. I'll give you the last word on that, Ryan. Give us one more parting shot and then we'll move on, because we're deep in this now.
I think, Nick, again, Darren and I are moderates that had to try to bring you to the middle, and I don't know if we were successful. I view you as being in the front pew at the Church of Liberalism.
Okay.
And you are taking communion, and you are fully embraced in the dogma. And all I'm saying is like, there are no saints, there are no sinners. It's just people doing it, and they're all doing the same thing.
Right. Okay. And so I'll give my final word on this, and then we'll see what all you guys think. I mean, we've been at this for about an hour, and I'm sure there are a lot of points that were made on both sides. So we very much welcome what you would have to say about it. Any statistics, proof, or whatever that you want to put, comments, we're all about that. We want to hear from you. So
I'm sorry. I did a fact check. I was wrong. I said earlier in the show that Obama did more executive orders than Trump. I was right. He did 276, but it was over 8 years.
Right.
Trump did his 220 something over 4. So it was 50% more per year for Trump than for Obama. So I just want to correct the record on that.
Yeah, because I know some of you well-schooled people out there were going to jack.
He's wrong.
Get those social media fingers working. So anyway, I don't think, as usual, I don't think that we're as far apart as what you characterize. I think that I completely agree that everyone is guilty. If you're talking about like government doing governmenting, which is basically people being in office to stay in office and taking the fruits of the opportunities that are there as politicians, rather than just being there for the sole purpose of solving problems, whether they get voted back in or not. I think that there are perverse incentives that need to be cleaned up completely, so that the kind of people that run for office are there because they really do care about making things better. We have no argument with that. It's a circular firing squad. Everybody should be firing at each other because they're all guilty. My concern is that it's been made a profit center. The idea of grievance is now a profit center that we are willingly giving ourselves over to, on the left and on the right, but particularly on the right. And the net result, and again, there's a clip with an interview with Frank Bruni in the show notes. There's a book called The Age of Grievance, where I think we need to open our eyes to the idea that these things are not serving us. They are extracting more from us than they are giving us. And we need to be aware so we can make better decisions. That's the bottom line. So that was my rant for the week. So I want to end this one with a nice fun fact that I think will be a fun fact quiz I will put out to you guys. I've been trying to deal with the idea of the importance of sleep and the rejuvenating properties of it, the mental health properties of it, the metabolism affecting properties of it, all the different things. I've always been one to try and get as little sleep as possible. I try to, go to bed as late as possible, wake up as early as possible. But I find that my body is now not responding as well to that, and so I'm leaning into, the virtues of sleep. And everyone will tell you that 8 hours of sleep, 7 hours of sleep is optimal. I'm still not getting that, but I do think that sleep is something that I am prioritizing now. So that's what's behind this. So I started looking into how do other animals deal with sleep? As humans, we feel like sleep is like a big deal or whatever. I wonder if other animals are get as much sleep as we do. So my question for you is, what is the animal that you think sleeps the most, and what is the animal that sleeps the least? And then I'll give you the answer. I'll tell you the one that sleeps the least is an animal in the ocean, based on what I
Shark.
Whale.
Whale. Okay, whale, shark. Both of you guys are close, and both of them have a similar sleep structure as the one who really is, from what I've seen, the one that sleeps the least, and that is a dolphin. And why does the dolphin sleep the least? The dolphin technically never sleeps, right? They say that sharks do sleep. They have a certain thing in their anatomy that allows them to, when they are asleep for small periods at a time, to be able to still be able to breathe underwater. Well, dolphins, and there are a few other aquatic animals too, they can actually put half of their brain to sleep at a time. So they can put the left side to sleep while the right side is still available and alert enough for any kind of issues. And then they can put the left side to sleep, they reverse it, right? And so that's how they're never fully asleep. So that was something that I learned. There's a few other animals in the ocean, I think, that do that. And then one that sleeps the most is
bear.
No, what's that cartoon? The sloth.
Sloth. Sloth.
Yes.
That's you guys are both in the ballpark. I'm gonna give Darren, a half point, and I'm gonna give a full point if you can tell me what kind of bear.
I go with polar bear.
Polar bear. Okay, that's a good one. But actually, it's its small, cute cousin, the koala bear. Koalas can sleep up to, from what the information I saw, 22 hours a day, and that's because they subsist off of eucalyptus plants. I guess that's what they eat mainly, and it takes a lot of energy to digest eucalyptus plants, and so they spend a lot of their time kind of chilling and sleeping. So that is my fun fact. And if any of you guys have fun facts or thoughts about these fun facts or stats about these fun facts, we're open to them. So,
hey Ron, does this sound familiar? Eyes in the dark, one moon circling. It's about sleep. Star Trek.
No.
There was an episode, Night Terrors, where no one could sleep. Next Generation. Yeah.
Oh boy. Some nerdery is on display here.
Put Night Terrors TNG in the show notes.
We'll get our friend from Dallas on the show. We'll just all talk about Star Trek for an hour.
Won't that be a hoot, guys? Tune in for that one, guys. All right, guys. I think we've taken enough of these good people's time. We really appreciate it if you guys have hung with us this long. We do enjoy getting together and talking about these topics. And again, we hope you'll like and subscribe and follow us on social media and right here on YouTube. And until next time, you guys, any parting shots before we go?
No.
No more Star Trek shots, though.
No more Star Trek shots.
No more Star Trek.
Anyway, man, it's always good to see you guys, and it's good to see all you guys at home, and we'll see you next time. We've got issues, so you don't have to.